Paul.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but I bet it was for a significant amount of money.
Still ridiculous.
Yeah, but fun. I'd watch it. Look, Jake Paul wants to test himself against actual, not just world champion, but one of the greatest of all time.
Fought, and it wasn't fixed, Jake Paul would not survive 45 seconds.
I don't know about that. I think it would take a few rounds.
Really?
But yeah, first of all, Jake is a lot bigger. Jake's a lot bigger.
But what way would they fight?
Well, not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started up. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It make no sense for me. It's not my what I'm looking at right now.
Joe Rogan was left stunned after learning that Jake Paul had offered Francis Ngannou the chance to be his next opponent, following the cancellation of his fight with Gervonta Davis. On his podcast, Rogan described the matchup as insane and borderline reckless for the YouTuber turned boxer. He emphasized that Ngannou, a UFC legend, and now a legitimate boxing powerhouse, is one of the most terrifying punchers in combat sports. Rogan questioned whether Jake truly understood the level of danger he was walking into, but admitted that, if the fight ever materialized, it would be a massive spectacle that would shake both boxing and MMA worlds.
Nikista calls Francis. This is Francis telling the story. Nikista calls Francis and says, hey, we need your help. We need an opponent for Jake. Tank is out. And Francis says, all right. And Francis says, well, how can I help you? Nikista says, well, we're looking at an opponent for Jake. Tank Davis is out. And Francis says, all right, but specifically, how can I help you? Nikista takes a third swing at the bat. He says, well, we need an opponent. We need a boxer. We need a partner. We need somebody to fight Jake. Tank is out. And Francis asks him again, okay, what specific...
When Jake Paul's exhibition bout with Gervonta Davis collapsed amid serious legal troubles surrounding Davis, Jake and his team quickly scrambled to find a new opponent. Among the names thrown into the mix was Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion turned crossover boxer. With his size, power, and global fame, Ngannou represented not just a replacement, but a colossal risk. His reputation as one of the most dangerous men in striking sports made the proposal both shocking and headline-worthy across combat sports media.
The saga, I think the fight is going to be completely canceled and rescheduled, and now we have potential opponent names and some people being ruled out coming into today. This is not a joke. It was said by Mike Coppinger and others that the #1 candidate to replace Tank Davis in a Jake Paul fight, probably on a different date, was going to be Francis Ngannou. What the f? But we have an update on that and other potential names that Jake could fight. Again, I think on a separate date, and why I think the Jake and Tank fight is completely off. No more, maybe, no more, we don't think it'll happen.
Michael Bisping was quick to point out the staggering size gap in the rumored Jake Paul versus Francis Ngannou matchup. He noted that Jake's original opponent, Gervonta Davis, is a much smaller lightweight, and shifting from Davis to Ngannou means jumping from one extreme to another in physical scale and threat level. Bisping highlighted that such a drastic leap, going from facing someone 5 divisions smaller to battling a heavyweight giant, creates not only a skill mismatch, but a massive difference in power, reach, and sheer danger. He called it less of a challenge and more of a physical impossibility.
Tyson, who's 58, Anderson Silva, who was way past his prime, people like Nate Diaz, who were way smaller. Gervonta Davis really did take the piss. I mean, that was just the craziest shout ever. To go from fighting Gervonta Davis, way smaller, to now boxing Francis Ngannou. I mean, listen, if he does it, fair play. But I just call #1 bullshit on this brother, because I don't see this happening. No.
This is #1 bullshit.
I just don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Nate Diaz, yeah, 100%. I mean, he beat him once already. I'm sure Nate Diaz would love to get another big payday, because obviously boxing on Netflix and going up against Jake Paul, given his success, given the name that he has, and given the magnitude of his events, Nate Diaz would get paid an absolute fortune once again. We know that it wasn't too long ago Jake Paul was talking about boxing Anthony Joshua. And that never came to fruition. There's absolutely no way he would box Anthony Joshua. If he did, if he was to do something like that, whether it be Anthony Joshua or Francis Ngannou, I'd give him his props. I'd give him his credit. And you never know. Maybe he would do it just for the clout. Because in many ways it would be, sorry about the airport notifications, it would be, you know, an admirable thing to do. And
According to Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul's team reaching out about a potential fight came as a complete surprise. He said the proposal arrived suddenly and didn't align with his professional plans. While financial terms were reportedly discussed, Ngannou made it clear that money wasn't the issue. Logic was. He questioned how going from Gervonta Davis to himself could even be seen as a rational step, stressing that fights should make sense both competitively and professionally. For Ngannou, this wasn't about chasing a payday. It was about maintaining credibility.
Fight Jake to replace Gervonta. I'm like, who's Jake? You know, like, I was so confused, you know, like, I wasn't expecting that at all. And he said, yeah, Jake Paul, you know, he's fighting. And I'm like, no, bro, come on. Don't disrespect me like that. And then they even say like, they even come out after and say, and what if the number are good? He sent out some number. I'm like, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started up. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. He make no sense for me. It's not my
Former UFC champion Daniel Cormier issued a blunt warning to Jake Paul about the dangerous consequences of stepping into the ring with Francis Ngannou. Cormier emphasized that Ngannou's power and physical dominance make him an entirely different beast compared to anyone Jake has ever faced. He warned that Paul simply isn't equipped to deal with the striking ferocity of a heavyweight who once ruled the MMA world. Cormier called it a situation where the risk far outweighs any financial reward, stressing that this wouldn't just be a spectacle. It could be a serious mistake with real consequences.
Goes from fighting Gervonta Davis to calling out Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul don't want those problems. I can't say it any different. Jake Paul does not want any Francis Ngannou problems. He don't. He does not want those issues. While I think it's crazy and I credit him for doing that, and I'm surprised he did that, this could be a ploy. Him poking out his chest, saying, I want Francis. He don't want those Francis Ngannou problems. I don't care what Anthony Joshua did to Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul gets in there with Francis. Francis will knock his head off this planet. You don't want those Francis problems. I watched Francis put down Tyson Fury. Sure, Anthony Joshua beat him. But even if Jake got power, I don't think he got power to be dealing with Francis. Because all it takes is for one.
Cormier also questioned Jake Paul's true motives, suggesting that his pursuit of Ngannou is driven more by publicity than genuine competition. He cautioned that Jake underestimates the danger of facing a heavyweight capable of punching through gloves. In MMA, Ngannou's knockout power is legendary, but in boxing it becomes even more focused and deadly. Cormier warned that if Jake enters the ring without understanding the difference between MMA striking and boxing defense, it could end quickly and brutally. It'll be a short night, he concluded grimly.
Right? Boxing is much different than mixed martial arts. The target audience might be the same, but the demographics different. The places where people are brought up are different. There's bigger entourages in boxing. It's just a different world in boxing. We've known that from the very beginning. We know that Gervonta Davis was not going to just play to Jake Paul's rules. I still don't know exactly why this thing is falling apart, but it is falling apart bad. It is bursting at the seams. We are almost exactly where we should have never started. This should have never gotten started, but it did. But we are almost now exactly where we need to be in the fight, and that's it.
Several combat sports analysts have labeled Jake Paul's rumored fight with Francis Ngannou on short notice as one of the riskiest moves of his career. They argue that after Gervonta, Davis pulled out late. Approaching a heavyweight like Ngannou made little sense strategically or professionally. Ngannou himself admitted the offer didn't fit his career path, and analysts agree that Jake wouldn't have nearly enough time to prepare for such a massive opponent. Many compared the idea to Tyson Fury's shocking bout with Ngannou, another crossover fight that blended spectacle and danger. Just like Fury, Jake could find himself facing a monster with unexpected skill, turning what should be entertainment into survival.
What's interesting about this is, okay, if they push it back to December, then that's slightly different. But this is the kind of one situation where you're kind of 10 days out, 2 weeks out from a fight, whenever they first got wind of this problem. This is the kind of situation where it would be possible that Jake Paul and Nikita Badarian and MVP, who are very, very shrewd people, this is the one occasion where they might end up making a mistake, taking someone at short notice who they shouldn't take. Because there'd be a whole raft of people putting their hand up for it, wouldn't they? Thinking, I'll take him at short notice. I'll make out that I've been sitting on a beach, eating and drinking for the last 6 months. But anything just to get in there with him. And then on the night, I'm gonna knock his head off. There'll be loads of people putting their hand up for this. And you'd have to be incredibly careful about who you took at short notice, because for it to have any kind of meaning, you would need to take a decent opponent at short notice, because obviously they're up against it because it's short notice. You couldn't take some barely warm body at short notice, because that would be even worse than giving them full notice. So this is the one area, the one situation in which it would be easy for them to make a mistake, but they don't make mistakes with things like this. They just don't. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they haven't been tempted into, somebody. Ngannou, that'd be a mistake. It'd be such a mistake. I know he got flattened by Joshua, but so what? Joshua is a 2-time unified champion of the world, and Ngannou's 270 pounds of absolute granite. That would have been a terrible, terrible mistake if they'd given him the fight.
And he dropped, like, people. I know, my opinion, Tyson Fury won that fight with Ngannou, but he still put Tyson Fury.
He was close.